Have you ever stopped to think about how weird it is that in just a few hundred years, the entire spiritual and philosophical map of the world was completely redrawn? Seriously, we're talking about this mysterious, incredibly pivotal time called the Axial Age. It's the period that gave birth to basically all the major religions and philosophies we still live with today. So, what on earth happened? Let's dig in. Okay, just look at this timeline for a second. Between roughly 800 and 200 BCE, something amazing was in the air. Over in India, you get the Buddha. In China, you have Confucius. Jump over to Greece, and there's Socrates. And in the Middle East, the great prophets of Israel are rewriting everything. The wild part? All of these revolutionary thinkers popped up at almost the exact same time in civilizations that had little to no contact with each other. So you have to ask, right? Is this just the biggest coincidence in human history? Or was there some hidden current, some common force that was pushing all of humanity toward this massive spiritual upgrade all at once? To really get what's so mysterious about this, you need to understand just how radical this shift was. I mean, this wasn't just about swapping out an old god for a new one. This was like upgrading humanity's entire spiritual operating system, from version 1.0 to something completely new. Before all this, religion was, pretty practical. It was all about doing the right rituals to get results you could see, like a good harvest or winning a battle. And your ethics, they were tribal. It was all about what's good for us, for our people. But after the Axial Age, the whole game changes. Suddenly, the focus is on transcendence, on saving your soul from this world. And ethics go universal. It's about what's good for everybody. A huge change. So what made this possible? Well, sociologists like Robert Bellah call it second-order thinking. Basically, it's the new ability to step outside your own bubble, your own culture, your own religion, and critique it from a higher, more abstract point of view. It's like humanity learned to see itself from the outside for the first time. And once that switch flipped, all these other changes just cascaded out. You get the idea of a higher, more perfect reality beyond our own. The golden rule, do unto others, starts popping up independently all over the world. And the focus shifts from the survival of the tribe to the salvation of the individual soul. This is the birth of philosophy and theology as we know them. Okay, so we know what happened, but that still leaves the million-dollar question. Why? Why then? The answer is, well, it's probably not what you're thinking. And it has a lot less to do with what was in people's heads and a lot more to do with what was in their pockets. And here it is, the core of this whole thing. What if this incredible leap forward for human consciousness wasn't sparked by a divine vision, but by a piece of technology we literally use every single day without a second thought? Smack dab in the middle of the Axial Age, around 600 BCE, something new hits the scene. Coinage, money. For the very first time, value becomes standardized, portable, and totally impersonal. And this one little innovation is about to light a fire that will change the world forever. Here's how it all went down. Big empires needed to pay massive armies of mercenaries. These are guys who don't care about loyalty. They just want to get paid. So kings invent coins to pay them easily. But this unleashes a whole new, brutal world of impersonal markets, widespread debt, and chattel slavery, where human beings become just another commodity on a scale that nobody had ever seen before. The old world of trust and community, it was being torn to shreds by cold, hard cash. And this is the crucial insight, coming from thinkers like the anthropologist David Graeber. The Axial Age wasn't just some beautiful, mystical flowering of ideas. No, it was a direct human reaction against this new, brutal economic world. It was a desperate search for a moral compass in a world that suddenly felt heartless. This chart really shows the conceptual leap perfectly. The market created this new idea that abstract value, a number on a coin, was separate from a physical thing, like a loaf of bread. Well, that idea created a blueprint for a new spiritual idea, that a pure, abstract soul was separate from the messy, corrupt physical body. One idea literally paved the way for the other. And get this, the very language of the marketplace started to infect our spiritual vocabulary. Things like sin and karma came to be seen as a kind of spiritual debt. Redemption was all about paying off that debt. To this day, the German word Schuld means both guilt and debt. And the new focus on charity? That was a direct rebellion against the new selfish logic of the market. So this new universal morality is born from the chaos of the first global markets. But an idea is not much good if it stays in one place, right? So how did these philosophies go viral and become the massive world religions we have today? Well, it turns out their universal, abstract nature was actually a huge competitive advantage.
So let's take Christianity as a case study. The sociologist Rodney Stark made a powerful case that its success wasn't just a miracle. It was also driven by some very practical social dynamics. You could almost call it survival of the kindest.
Think about the terrible plagues that ripped through the Roman Empire. The standard practice for pagans was to flee and abandon the sick. But the Christians, because of their new ethics, stayed behind to nurse everyone, Christian or not. The result? As you can see on the chart, their survival rate was way higher. Their compassion wasn't just nice. It was a powerful survival strategy that won them a ton of converts. Christianity also had this built-in demographic engine. At the time, female infanticide was tragically common in the Roman world. By forbidding it, Christian communities ended up with way more women. These Christian women would often marry pagan men, and over time, the husband and the kids would almost always adopt the wife's faith. It was a slow but steady growth strategy baked right into their core values.
All right, now let's switch gears and look at Islam. Its spread was just incredible, and it was driven by this powerful mix of military conquest, booming commerce, and vibrant culture.
First, you have the initial military expansion, which was just stunningly fast. In a little over a century after the Prophet Muhammad's death, a massive Islamic empire was forged, stretching all the way from Spain to India. This huge political unit became the container where the faith could grow and spread. But it wasn't just about conquest. There were some really strong incentives to convert. For one, non-Muslims had to pay a special tax, the jizya, and converting was a way out of that. Plus, Muslim merchants basically ran the major trade routes, so Islam became the language of business. And later, mystical Sufism was amazing at adapting Islam to local cultures, winning over people from West Africa to Southeast Asia.
So, there you have it. A story that starts with a spiritual crisis sparked by the invention of money, leading to a new kind of universal faith that spreads across the globe through plagues, demographics, and trade networks. It's a wild story, and it has a powerful echo that resonates all the way down to us today.
And here's the final thought I want to leave you with. Every time you think about right and wrong, every time you appeal to some universal human value, or just listen to your conscience, you are using a piece of spiritual technology that was invented 2,500 years ago. And it wasn't invented in a temple. It was forged in the chaotic, often brutal, crucible of the world's first markets. We like to think of morality and money as total opposites, but the strange truth is, one may have never existed without the other. We are all, whether we know it or not, children of the Axial Age.